So when people talk about the fastest downstroke players out there, the same names seem to keep coming back. A few of those names would be guys like Johnny Ramone. A lot of people talk about his insane downstroke ability and the ability to play entire shows like that. So here's just a very obvious example. I saw them play this live one time and his right hand was on fire. I've had to play that live before, and we didn't play it nearly as fast as the Ramones played it, and my hand got really fatigued, my wrist and my forearm as well. So I totally agree with that assessment of Johnny Ramone being one of the fastest downstrokers out there. I once did a video on Mick Mars, and a lot of people mention his name as well. One time live, I completely failed at playing live wire. I just couldn't keep up with those downstrokes, so I ended up going like this. It sounded so weak and I was so mad at myself that I made it a priority to get good at my downstroke so that I could play that correctly the next show. And of course, the number one name that comes up is pretty obvious, James Hetfield. He's earned the title, and it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I saw this video of them playing Blitzkrieg. I believe it was in Canada, and I could not believe how fast he was downpicking the solo section. Check this out. So I believe James has held the title of the fastest downpicker for a long, long time. But recently, I'm starting to see something that I took for granted before. I did a video recently called the HETFIELD hack, and that's where James would do little things in order to skip a couple beats here and there. He would do some upstrokes instead of doing all downstrokes. And he sings, so he has a really good reason to do that. Plus, he's been playing for all these decades. He has every reason to take any little break that he wants to, or to make anything more playable when they played live. But one thing that I noticed is that every time James would do something as far as just taking maybe one stroke off or doing some upstrokes, I always heard the other guitarist, Kirk Hammett, filling in the gaps. So I went down a deep dive and I started watching all of their live videos from recent concerts. And I noticed on Master of Puppets on the Howard Stern show, Kirk is playing all the downstrokes. He never takes any breaks from what I could see. And every time James would do something a little bit different, you always heard Kirk filling in the gaps, like I said. Another video I noticed was on Creeping Death, because this riff is actually pretty tiring after a while. So James has a really cool way of breaking it up. Sometimes he'll go. But just like on Master of Puppets, Kirk was there for every single pick. He was unfailing too. All throughout the song, he kept up that pace. Sometimes towards the end of a song, you can get a little bit fatigued and skip a couple things here and there, but Kirk seemed to hit all of the downstrokes. And the last example I'll give, I could give a lot more, but I'll just stick with 3 for this video, is on Blackened. During the verse, once again, I know James is singing, so he has all the reason in the world to, do some upstrokes here and there if he wants to. But when they panned over to Kirk, you could see him filling in all the gaps with downstrokes like this. Meanwhile, James was doing this once in a while. See how I did an upstroke in there? It's funny that one upstroke can really rescue a sore wrist when you're really starting to feel that fatigue and you just either miss one downstroke or you replace it with an upstroke. It seems like all of a sudden you can go for much longer. And this is something I do all the time as well. But it doesn't seem like Kirk does that very much. He just really found a way to keep those downstrokes going. And if you watch his technique, it's really interesting because of course James has his 3-finger technique and his wrist is just like a machine most of the time. Kirk picks a little bit more open-handed, sometimes even just his middle finger sticks out, which I kind of think is funny. But he's found this really interesting way to economize his movements. So you'll see him bring his hand in like he's really going after it. And then once he's there, you could barely see his hand move. It's like really small picking. If you watch James, you'll see him do big movements like that. But Kirk does more like this. Kirk just seems to do these microscopic downstrokes, and it's allowing him to play the entire show and be okay with it. So whatever he's doing, it seems to be working. So the whole point of this video is to bring some attention to Kirk Hammett's downstrokes, which I think have been underrated for forever, I guess. But of course, James will always be the GOAT of downpicking to me and to a lot of people, but I think it's really important to bring Kirk into the discussion because he gets forgotten about so much when it comes to his rhythm playing and his downstrokes. And I think he just deserves to be in the discussion. If you're going to be talking about Mick Mars, Johnny Ramone, I think you have to throw Kirk Hammett in the mix as well. And recently, I would have to say he might even surpass James just because of all the ground he has to cover. Might sound like blasphemy, but I thought I'd put that out there, and maybe in the comment section you guys could tell me if you agree or disagree, or if you have other down pickers that I didn't mention today, because there are a big list of them, but I just chose 3 or 4 today. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, and we'll catch you at the next video, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.